I'm John Batchelor. Mary Kissel is here of the Wall Street Journal editorial board. We're right to Eric Trager because there's trouble again in Egypt. These weeks of focusing on Syria, as we must, because that's an unfinished story. The unfinished story in Egypt is the coup that led to the arrest of the leadership of the Muslim Brothers, the Ikhwan. But since then, there have been different directions, and we're going to follow one now in particular. It's events, one after the other. A raid of a city, a village, a town outside of Cairo 24 hours ago. Lots of arrests of the Ikhwan, the army raiding a village. This was Muslim Brothers powered. And then within these last hours, I'm following the reporting from David Kirkpatrick, the bureau chief of the Times in Cairo. A shootout and a senior police officer is dead. There are wounded officers in another town in the outskirts of Cairo. Cairo is a megacity. It's got lots of satellite cities outside of it. Eric Trager knows it very well. So, Eric, these two events, are they related to the same push since the July coup to suppress, to brutalize, and also to interrupt the plans of the Muslim Brothers? Good evening to you.
Good evening. Look, I wouldn't say that the battle between the police and the Muslim Brotherhood started with Morsi's removal on July 3rd. I would actually say that that battle has been long running for decades at this point, and certainly Morsi's removal gave the police the sense that they are back, baby, which is why they have been going very aggressively against the Muslim Brotherhood, often very violently, and these kind of tit-for-tat incidents are just the latest iteration of this long-running story.
Eric, will this cause a pullback from the police to reassess the situation? Or, given the current political environment, will it simply encourage the army-backed government to crack down harder?
Well, I think the latter for sure. I mean, the death of a police officer, the murder of a police officer is something that the police are, first of all, going to take very seriously. And secondly, as you indicated, Egyptians right now are in a real nationalist mood, and they are treating attacks on police and attacks on military as a rallying cry to increase the crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood.
The question of these arrests, the jails are filling. To what end, Eric? What is the next step for al-Sisi and the crackdown?
Well, it's very hard to say. What we're seeing, of course, is that the Muslim Brotherhood is being decapitated by this government. Right. They're going after top leaders. Just on Tuesday, 3 more guidance office members were arrested, as well as one of their more prominent English-speaking spokesmen. But the military is also sending signals that it wants to reintegrate the Brotherhood under entirely new leadership. And just in that vein, there's been a senior Muslim Brotherhood politician touring with a broader group of politicians around Washington. And believe it or not, the military attaché's office here in Washington, that's the Egyptian military attaché's office, is escorting him. Now, I don't think this is going to work. I frankly think that the Brotherhood is a secretive organization with its own internal rules, but no doubt that this is what the military wants, to try to take out who they view as the bad apples in the Brotherhood and let it reconstitute itself under more quote-unquote moderate leaders.
That's extraordinary to me, especially coming so soon after Morsi's coup, the coup of Morsi, and throwing him into jail. Extraordinary, Eric. Is there a fear that this violence could spread far outside Cairo and its suburbs?
Well, in a certain sense, that's really already happening. I mean, what you've had, for example, in Asyut is Islamists in control of the city for much of the past 2.5 months. With both Islamists and thugs attacking churches. You've actually had the worst anti-Christian violence in this area. And just a couple of days ago, the military and the police ran a major operation in that city against the Islamists. So, this is something that's not just in Cairo, not just in Alexandria. It's a fight that we're seeing in smaller instances around the country.
Eric, the prosecution of Mr. Morsi, David Kirkpatrick also reports that they've given him telephone privileges to his family. But there was talk of him being charged with murder or the deaths of policemen. Now there's another dead policeman. What do you know about Morsi and the prosecution?
Well, it seems like this, there have been a number of charges that have been reported against Morsi. Of course, we don't know exactly what it is he's being charged with. One was that he was going to be charged with insulting the judiciary, which is frankly a bizarre crime. But a more likely crime, something which I actually think he could be found guilty of, is the notion that he ordered violence against protesters. I mean, we saw that in December outside the presidential palace when he coordinated with the Brotherhood leadership to send Brotherhood cadres to attack those protesters. That's actually a very plausible thing to charge him with. Now, will he actually, be convicted? I think so, but will he get, a very, very tough penalty? Very hard to know.
He is the decap of decaps. They don't have a plan for him then. I mean, he just sits in jail.
Pretty much. I mean, look, the Muslim Brotherhood has been removed from power, and the consequence of a coup, and I'm speaking in general now, is that those who remove a ruling party from power have to ensure that that party doesn't come back, or else, of course, the people who did the removing, in this case the generals, could be targets for, frankly, assassination. That's something that the generals are very much aware of, which is why they're really targeting, first and foremost, the Brotherhood's mobilizing organization, so that even if it were to return in some form, it would be highly unlikely to win elections.
Eric, you've spent years talking to the Brotherhood in Cairo, in other cities around Egypt. You have this interesting, really probably unique perspective into their organization. Do they have the ability to reconstitute themselves under another strong leader like Morsi? Or was Morsi such a dominant force that he's really left them headless as he sits in jail?
Well, in fact, I think it's important to remember that Morsi was not really a dominant force over the Brotherhood at all. He was, certainly a dictatorial president in terms of his demeanor, but the real power in the organization resides in the guidance office. Now, those guidance office leaders are also in prison, like Morsi. We're very unlikely to see them again in their lifetimes. But at the same time, let's remember, there's a country in constant upheaval, and if something happened that somehow gets these guys released from prison, it would not be too hard for the Brotherhood to reconstitute its structure and start mobilizing again, perhaps for electoral victory. So that's really the big question. Is this decapitation permanent, or is it something that can be overturned by another wave of upheaval?
Final question, Eric, very quick. Is there indication that the Muslim Brothers are in contact with the White House right now?
There's not much indication of that. We do know, though, that when Senators McCain and Graham went to Cairo in July, or I think it was August, actually, they did meet with Brotherhood leaders at the Brotherhood's protest. But I don't believe there's anything right now.
Eric Trager of the Washington Institute. Mary, thank you very much. Mary Kissel of Opinion Journal. She's the host each day at 1 p.m. at WSJ.com. I'm John Batchelor.